From the Military University Weather Center, I'm student meteorologist Mitchell Cokain.
And student meteorologist Peter Corman, and welcome to the first Weather Watch video of the semester, Mitchell.
Yeah, I know things are starting to heat up now that we're getting into more spring-like temperatures finally. So
yeah. Around here this week hasn't been great. Right now it's like very dreary outside, but out in the plains in the Midwest, severe weather season starting, and it's getting started on a pretty active note.
it is, and it's finally we're finally getting these storms. I've been ready for it. So
I've been waiting for that.
let's just jump right into it.
So to start off with today, there is currently a slight risk of severe weather across portions of the plains, into the Ozarks, and into the lower Ohio Valley, mainly focused around the cities of Dallas, up near Springfield, all the way up towards Evansville. The Storm Prediction Center introduced a 5% tornado risk earlier today for portions of northeastern Arkansas and southeastern Missouri, highlighting the greatest tornado threat in there sometime this afternoon. There's also a 15 wind and 15 hail. Now, something you'll notice, and when we go into the other SPC outlooks, you'll notice as well, these maps look different than they usually do. And that's because, as of yesterday, March 3rd, they introduced this new thing called Conditional Intensity. So pretty much this aims to highlight more conditional risk that we see here across the United States. So let's say there is a volatile environment for tornadoes, but we're not sure if it's going to convect storms or not. They would use this kind of conditional risk for this. So to go over these briefly, we'll start with tornado. SIG 1 would imply a reasonable max intensity of EF2+. SIG 2 would be intense tornadoes, EF3+. And then SIG 3 would be violent tornadoes, EF4+. Wind, SIG 1 is anything over 65 knots, or about 74 miles per hour. SIG 2 is usually used for the potential of a derecho or a long-lived bow echo. And then SIG 3 is used for ongoing derecho. So if something like August 10th, 2020 happened again today, we would probably see a SIG 3 risk at issue. For hail, it's a little bit more straightforward. SIG 1 is for any large hail over 2 inches in diameter, and then SIG 2 is for any very large hail over 3.5 inches in diameter. Currently taking a look at the radar across the parts of the central United States, we have multiple areas of showers and thunderstorms focused around Illinois, moving into Indiana here in a bit. Got some few heavier showers and thunderstorms over here in Kentucky. And we have some storms firing up here in northern Arkansas that could be the play for our tornado threat later, Mitchell.
Yeah, these storms are gonna, we have this type of stuff here. I'm gonna let you kind of take this over here.
Okay. So we're gonna come here to the models here. Not the best idea to look at the models today, but we'll just take a look to see at a glance of what we're expecting. This is the we're gonna look at the HRRR here, and we're gonna go over to reflectivity. Now this is the 18Z run, so this ran about an hour and a half ago. You can see some of these storms here. I expect to see coverage and intensity of storms only increase further here, especially across these more southern parts of the slight risk area in Arkansas, Oklahoma, and Texas in the next few hours. You can start to see some of the storms also going up here near the Missouri boot heel. Going to the HRRR here, that is for tomorrow morning. Going back here, we're going to pause at this hour, and then we're going to go over to our surface-based CAPE and hodograph that overlays here. You can see we have anywhere from about 1,500 to 2,500 joules per kilogram of CAPE. Higher values down here in Texas. We'll take a quick sounding here. We'll go northeast Arkansas. Taking a look at this profile here, you see I have 2,000 CAPE, so that's a pretty good amount of CAPE, especially for this time of year. The hodograph isn't necessarily favorable for tornadoes at this point. This would probably favor more of a large hail threat initially. And then as the evening goes on, while we may see an increasingly linear storm mode into maybe a couple lines or Boeing segments, I think tornado threat will increase. And I do think most of this tornado threat may end up a bit overnight. I can see the HRRR here doesn't show much storms in the highest risk area for the tornado until later this evening. There are still storms around here everywhere. Main threat, once again, today for a day like this is going to be large hail and damaging winds. A couple tornadoes likely, probably mainly after dark. So obviously, nocturnal tornadoes are historically more dangerous and more deadly just because at night you cannot see them as well. So that is one of the big threats that could happen. So some of this stuff will either eventually cluster up or just kind of die out here. And some of this convection will be left over into day 2. As we move to day 2 here, if you want to talk about the outlook briefly?
Yeah, sure. Yes, we have a slight risk as well for the central Great Plains there, going from Lubbock to Amarillo, Texas, through Wichita, Kansas. There. This is for day 2, and then you have the yep. Then you have the 5% risk there tomorrow for the tornado. It's actually we have a hatched risk there. Was that 2? I know they changed this a little bit.
That's a SIG 1 there.
SIG 1. There we go. So that's up through the Central Plains as well, basically same exact spot as where this slight risk is. And then we have also a hail risk there, also SIG 1. And then we also have a hail risk. It's also very similar. It's very similar to kind of today that is, but tomorrow just more west-based risk to tomorrow.
I think tomorrow will be a good example of how this conditional intensity will work. And here's why. So we'll go over to the central U.S. and we'll start with our 500 millibar look. So you can see the shortwave here, located across the central region, that is responsible for today's severe weather across the region. As that moves off to the east and brings showers further east, especially into where we are in the lower Susquehanna Valley. Another trough will move into the region. I'll go out to the national view for a slightly better view of this. You can see this trough here will begin ejecting into the Rockies and central and southern plains. Tomorrow night into Friday, there's also a big risk for severe weather Friday we'll get to here. But you can see some of this like 40 knot, like mid-level flow beginning to impinge into the region. I'll go back there. You see that? Our 850s here. Not bad for like this time of day, 34 knots. The low-level jet will intensify as we get closer to the evening hours. Taking a look here, you know, the SPC has this risk more outlined here in like Texas, Oklahoma, so if I focus on that a bit more, you can see instability will not be a problem in areas south of the warm front. The big question is, where does like this sort of warm front, you know, set up? You can kind of see a dry line back here. I can tell you it's a dry line because I would imagine if I go look over at the temperature and wind barbs, you do not see that temperature change behind it very much at all. But if I go back over to dew points, we have that change there. So the big question is, I guess, how far do these 60 dews make it north? I look at one model here, like the HWRF AirW, and it has this stuff like not getting much into like North Texas here in the Texas Panhandle. And then you look at the HUR and it has an entirely different place. Euro, even further north. So I guess the big question out of this day will be here is, do storms fire, and will we see some discrete supercells? Because if we do get some discrete supercells to initiate, like maybe the HUR would say, and you look at a model like the ARW that doesn't have much at this time, and then the FV3, as it usually does, prints several different supercells. But you can see that like the difference in these models, like some of these models convect, some of these models don't, and that's the big question. Will this convect? Because if it does convect, I'll take a sounding from the HUR just south of these storms. You have a rather potent environment here. Now you will have to break through this surface inversion here to get any surface rooted storms. But if you can, and especially if they get rooted early on before this surface inversion creeps in further, then taking a look at the photograph that's rather streamlined, will probably be a very notable tornado threat with any of those cells, potentially, as the SPC highlighted there, for strong tornadoes indirectly. They did update their discussion from today. We'll see what it said. I kind of tweaked from what they said here. It's like, they're like, we're not sure mainly what the convective mode is going to be like. A more discrete mode for longer will have a more potent severe weather threat, because if you don't have those surface-based storms producing tornadoes, those are going to be elevated storms with the potential to produce significant hail. Eventually, upscale growth will turn into more of a damaging wind, and then tornado threat, if anything. Going back to the HUR real quick.
It all just depends on where they're going to, when and if they're going to convect along that line.
I think I'm more confident in it convecting. I think it's just a matter of, do we get a depiction like this, or is it more upscale? A more upscale situation would obviously have a more limited wind or a more limited hail and significant tornado threat. Obviously, if you get a few discrete supercells roaming around, you're going to have that significant tornado and hail threat. That stuff moves off to the north, and then we set up for day 3. Coming over to the SPC, if you want to talk about this.
Oh yeah, we got enhanced risk just slightly east of what we're gonna have for day two. So, as you guys can see, those highlights, there's these Oklahoma City, Wichita, Kansas again, then Topeka, Kansas, and up through what would that be? Northwestern
Missouri.
Missouri. Yeah, okay, I know my states. And then we also have a really big hatched risk for. That's for.
That's just generally like
Okay.
significant severe weather there.
So that's a pretty big risk for day three, in my opinion.
That is. This was a day 4 30% yesterday. This was a day 3. The wording in here is not as strong as it was this morning. They straight up mentioned strong tornadoes in there. They took that out probably because the initial CAM guidance coming in wasn't as significant as some of the models were. There's still some miles uncertainty of this, especially with how amped this trough could be. If I come over here, I'll do a compare models loop here. And I look at even just comparing the HER and the GFS. The HER doesn't really have that close low, still has like a rather notable like 70, 80 knot jet streak. But you go to the GFS, it's more amplified, it digs more. You have that more widespread area of southerly to southwesterly flow. A scenario like the GFS would easily favor a more significant severe weather event across the region. The HER would probably be not as significant, but I think in a scenario like the HER, you would still probably have some significant severe weather. We're going to go to, let's see, we'll use one of the NSSL MPAS runs. This is for, does this go out far enough? Okay, I'll see which one does. Okay, I'm going to look at the 0Z since the 12Zs aren't fully out yet. And as always, there's a couple questions with this event, especially with, it will probably matter much of how the day before evolves here, Thursday. You can see that's Thursday. You can see this MPAS model convex basically very quickly upscale. Some initially discrete stuff, but that would be more of a damaging wind threat. Gets out of the risk area. There's some lingering convection here in portion of the enhanced risk area, which would definitely limit the severe threat down there. But I think a big question I at least have is wondering about this crashing cold front here off to the north. If I take a loop this real quick, you can see this kind of like crashing nature of the front here that's going to move in. And we'll have to see how quickly that moves into it and see how it impacts. You can see regardless here, you still get 60 dews, like plenty way up to pretty much to Kansas City. I can't do soundings with this model, but I think I can do, yeah, I'll look at this here and you see generally 1,000, like 1,000 to like 2,000, and then you get your higher Cape values across southern Oklahoma. Let me see. So you can see like some of the convection starting to go, and also we also have like what will fire here and not. I think with like setups like these, you have to like be wary of like does it convect or not. I know looking around, that's been some of the concerns. Like maybe the northern mode is sure to convect, and then the southern mode is a little uncertain. You can see the northern mode and the more southern mode here convex. This is more, see, initially discrete, quickly goes upscale. I think regardless of that, it's hour 72 on the cams. A lot can change still. The placement of the trough could change still. I'm hesitant to trust the GFS on a more amplified solution based on the fact that, we've noticed this here in Mitchell as well, it's been more amplified with some systems and it hasn't panned out to be.
Yeah, exactly, especially with this past winter and how, it's been amplifying everything, especially the past couple of, winter storms, and it hasn't really come to fruition with how everybody, all the other models have been working out.
Especially obvious here.
Yeah, it's definitely the outlier amongst all the other ones here.
Just take a quick comparison here. It's like it stands out outside of the FV3, which I'm pretty sure is runoff the GFS.
It is.
So okay, and then so that severe risk would probably if from the wording they used this morning. Well, this doesn't have like an explicit like probability. I imagine once we get the day 2 risk tomorrow, this is probably going to be tornado and hail driven. If I dive into the discussion a bit, they mentioned the potential for like semi-discrete and discrete supercells.
Yep.
Let's see. with near, yeah. Talks about like how the southern mode will probably remain more isolated than the northern mode. Across eastern Kansas, grow upscale, yeah. hmm So this one sounds like it's probably more mixed mode than probably what Thursday would be if it were to verify properly. But it was still going to probably be a significant severe weather event. Now, if we hop into the day 4 through 8 outlook briefly, there's not much highlighted here. We're watching the potential for maybe a severe weather event
Day 4
up
Saturday,
here.
right?
On
Day 4
Saturday here.
Saturday,
I'll just take a quick look at the
yeah.
models.
Might as well.
I've been talking to a couple people about this. We have this, the shortwave or this drop here responsible kind of like up here for like the past few days of severe weather. It ejects off to the north, and as we get over here on Saturday, we start getting some moisture returns. Some of these areas here, like, are getting off a backdoor here, so I think the severe threat will probably be limited to areas that don't get backdoored as hard over the next few days, and B, where you're able to recover from it better, which will probably be like west of like I-81 here and like
Western
south of
Pennsylvania, the Delmarva area.
If I go here, and I'm using the Euro as an example here. You see, there's some instability here. I pick up a sounding here in Northern Virginia. That's not awful for
That's workable.
for this region standard. It's not awful. Obviously, out on the plains, it wouldn't probably be workable most of the time. But like 700 Cape, you have like 40 knots of deep layer shear. Assuming you get a solution like this, we probably could see a marginal risk get issued. Probably mainly for like damaging winds, and maybe they don't rule out an isolated tornado or two. Now, the good thing is, like, if you want to chase severe weather, this pattern, like out west, the current pattern here is probably not going to change anytime soon. After a pattern that was dominated by like cold in the east, warmer out west, a big drought developing, we're kind of getting a much needed pattern change to where we're going to finally see some of this warmth out west. Hence why you're going to get more dropping here in the western part of the United States and a return of severe weather. The Storm Prediction Center is specifically so far monitoring next Tuesday for more severe weather. This little compact shortwave here ejecting into the southern plains. If I compare some models here, you can see models still have a variance of solutions, but they are in pretty good agreement that there will be some sort of trough in this region that will be ejecting in. It just depends on when does it eject, how does it eject, and like that placement will determine. They feel confident enough that they put out a day 7 15%, highlighting portions of the southern plains into the Missouri Valley. They talk about it here. Yes, they do. This combined with strong large scale ascension support scattered severe storms in the afternoon and evening. So we'll have to watch that day closely here. If we take a look at dew points here, you can see 60 dew points are plenty far north. Moisture won't be an issue for sure on any mile you look at. We'll have to see how far north this makes it. Obviously, storm that tracks further north, like up here, will bring these 60 dews up here. Solution like the GFS, which I'm not going to lean towards based on its performance this year so far. I've been very hesitant to even trust it within a few days. But the rest of the model, guys, you can see, is in very much agreement, even some of the AI models. So we're going to have to watch that window there for potentially more severe weather. And I think that's about it if you want to add on anything.
You kind of just took everything.
I did.
You did great. You did great.
Thank you. I didn't mean to take all of it from you.
No, please. This is my first time, so I'm just kind of trying to...
Yeah, so, like, all this is saying, with the pattern flip that has been long awaited for several of us, we'll finally get some warmth out in the east for the first time in a while. We get severe weather returning out in the central parts of the country, and I think we're in for a rather active period of severe weather for like another week and a half before I think things probably shut off again.
I sure hope so. I need thunder and I need lightning.
Oh, I need it. It's been a while since we've had anything. I think the last thing here was like December. I guess I was here for December 19th. We had this like weak shelf cloud moves through with like a frontal passage.
I was there. Yep. Remember
so,
that, yeah.
I think that'll do it. So thank you for tuning in, and I hope to see you all next time.
See you guys.